Okay, so I think we'll get cracking. So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for this latest CICM East of England branch event. This is a overview of credit recruitment and salary trends and some tips of what you need to know in 2023. This session is being recorded, so if you don't wish to be on camera, then please feel free to switch off. If I can ask everyone to try and remain on mute if you aren't asking a question, that'd be great, but I would encourage people to ask questions by speaking up during the presentation or using the chat box function. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end, so if anyone has something that they want to ask closer to the end of the presentation, then please don't hesitate to do so, and it will be good to hear any thoughts, opinions, and questions you want answered. I'll give you a bit of an overview from who I am, essentially. So my name is William Plom. I'm a senior manager at Hayes, and I've worked within accountancy and finance recruitment for 9 years. I specifically recruit within credit management across the East of England, and I am a CICM affiliate, and I'm the East of England branch secretary. As it stands, they've unfortunately signed me back on for another year, so they're stuck with me now. They can't get rid of me. Today's agenda, I'm going to go through a number of little bits and bobs for you. I'm going to give you a bit of a backdrop into the world of work and some of the data around the last 12 to 15 months, including the labour market sort of changes. I'm going to look at some insights into salary trends and changes. We're going to look at why there's been a sort of creation of a quite high level of skills in demand and a skills shortage out there. And we're going to look at how to best attract candidates and become an employer of choice. And lastly, I'm going to finish with some recommendations for how to run the best sort of recruitment process and retention process, and a Q&A opportunity at the end as well. So starting with that backdrop, I'm going to take you through some findings of our latest salary guide, but it's always good to give it some context. And no doubt there are people on this call today that have experienced some challenges when hiring new talent. So here are just some of the challenges that employers have been trying to navigate over the last year or so. Some of these aren't necessarily all bad news, but it does mean that there's an interesting and slightly ever-changing landscape out there. Last year and early into this year, we've seen some of the most frenzied recruitment we've seen. And whilst this has sort of slowed slightly, and we've had a few peaks and dips here and there, the demand for talent is still right there. Why? In October last year, unemployment rate in the UK dropped to 3.5%, which was its lowest rate since February 1974. At face value, that sounds like quite a positive statistic, suggesting that less people are struggling to find work and people are able to participate in the economy. Unfortunately, the people that are not in work or seek employment has significantly increased, and this data, alongside some existing skill shortages across the labour market, means that employers are facing a bit of an unrelenting battle for talent at the moment. You throw into the mix rising inflation, falling consumer confidence, a continually evolving workplace. It's certainly not an easy ride. You'll note the challenges in relation to pay, which we'll be coming on to a little later. So a lot of the data I'll be sharing and showing you today is from our latest salary guide that we published in November last year. This is the 9th salary guide that we've produced in this format, and we surveyed over 13,000 employers from 17 different industries and sectors. Salaries across these roles for the UK, across all of our different industries and specialisms. So it's quite a broad survey and does give quite a comprehensive view of the market. And we've also got some insights from industry experts and governing bodies as well. Alongside that, there is some supporting data from a number of other sources that we've used. So it's not just coming all from one place. Hopefully it'll be useful information and quite, again, broad, comprehensive info for you all to take away today. So let's start where job flow is. So this is hot off the press. This has come from an update from last month, so right up till February 2023. And as you can see here, the peak we've seen over the last few months is we've slightly had this little dip last month. So that is the first time we've seen a drop in vacancies being registered online, but since the pandemic. However, as you can see, this is significantly still higher than pre-COVID levels. The level of vacancies being registered is still higher than pre-COVID, and we're still sort of struggling with a bit of the COVID backlash that you can see in the middle of that graph. Anecdotally, in credit, I personally have seen this to be an even tougher market to operate in, as especially during the initial lockdown period, cash is king, and good credit professionals are really hard to find. No organisation could afford not to be collecting revenue at that point in time, and more flexibility, more earning potential, more opportunity was potentially afforded to credit controllers and people within credit, and therefore it's been more difficult to tempt these staff away. That has bled into salaries as well, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. This again backs up that statistic really. So despite comparatively less vacancies out there than a year ago, there are still more vacancies than there are unemployed people to fill them, and that's given the picture of this skills shortage. As you can see, this graph goes way back to 2002, and it's never been there's never been that demand higher than supply until the last 2 years. You combine that with our latest sort of redundancy levels, and it's hardly surprising that recruitment and retention is high on people's agenda. Less people are facing redundancy in the last 6-7 months than the majority of the COVID pandemic, and significantly less than the financial crisis back in the noughties. This means there's just less candidates coming back onto the market. I've especially felt this in when trying to recruit for temporary staff and supporting with cover, because ultimately more people are in full-time employment and are not going to leave to go onto a contract or a temporary assignment. So finding temporary support has been ever the increasing challenge. And if you're ever looking for that support, I think you need to be really flexible in your approach into what skills you really need as essentials, and where else you can utilize your team to sort of plug those gaps and help you through what might be a sticky patch. Wages, what I think everyone is sort of keen to hear about. So to give some context to salaries, I've gone back and looked at our previous salary guides as well. In 2020, our salary guide told us that we saw a 1.8% growth across the board in salaries. In 2021, we saw a 2.8% growth in salaries, so a significant uplift, but still relatively manageable, I would say. I don't know if anyone cares to venture a guess what the latest stats was from our latest salary guide in terms of percentage growth. Anyone care to jump in and have a guess?
4.
I've just seen someone's put 5% in the chat. You're not far off, but even more, it was 5.4% growth in general salaries across the entirety of the UK, and that was across all of our different labour markets. And actually, the ONS statistics that you can see on the right-hand side paint an even more disproportionate picture here. 5.9% increase they've seen across their data points, and it's actually even more when you look at bonuses as well. 6.7% without bonuses. Sorry, so there's a significant uplift here in terms of the salary increases going on. That's still not the whole picture. Private sector pay actually grew by 7.3% last year. 7.3 in the entire public sector is quite enormous. The public sector grew by 4.2, but 7.3 is the largest private sector growth rate you've ever seen since they started putting these numbers down on paper. So this again just builds that picture of how significant these changes are to the labour market at the moment. There is a question around sectors and the demand for sectors, sector-specific staff, and there is a slide I think coming up on that. So I'll come back to that in a moment. There we go. So these are just some of the biggest uplifts we saw in our salary guide. So legal, engineering, manufacturing, tech, all 7% or above in terms of their salary increases over the past 12 months. Significant uplift. We've got business support, and we took a specific look at shared services as well. And even there, 5.5% growth in shared service centre salaries as well. So these are all quite significant numbers. Finance was, as a whole, that's everything from your transactional staff through to your qualified accountants and finance directors and CFOs. We saw an average increase of 6.5% across finance. And where does credit slot into that? As you can see here, here's some of the specific salaries on finance, and credit 6.3%. These are huge numbers, really, when you look at it. And I think that I'd be surprised if everyone in this chat or members of your team have had a 6.3% pay increase over the last year, but essentially that is potentially what they're being offered elsewhere. So when you're thinking about your recruitment strategy and your retention strategy moving forward, how are you going to combat that? Okay, it's obviously not the whole picture when you're looking at just salaries, but it's worth taking note of and having that in the back of your mind when you're discussing that with the powers that be in your organisation. We're seeing some significant challenges, as we sort of mentioned at the beginning, but unsurprisingly, the top external challenge that people were facing was the economic environment. 63% of people rate this as their number one challenge from an external capacity. I don't think I need to go into too many details around that. I think we've been beaten over the head a little bit with that in the news for, well, the last 18 months to 2 years. Internally, again, not surprising for me working in recruitment, but talent retention is the top internal challenge. Not necessarily recruiting people in, but actually how do you keep hold of your best people as well? And again, we'll come on to some more detail around that and the challenges people are facing there. And lastly, hiring plans. 62% of people plan to hire within the next 12 months within accountancy and finance. That's actually lower than the general average. The general average was, I think, 74% of people plan to hire in the next 12 months. So I suppose ask yourself this question really: are you well equipped enough to beat off the competition? Because there's a lot of people out there probably looking for the same sort of talent as you are. Alongside this, we've actually seen that there's an increase in finance professionals planning on moving jobs in the next 12 months as well. It increased from 47% to 53% in our guide. And if you lost 5 of your 10 staff members over the next 12 months, I'd imagine that you might well be struggling to get your work done and deliver on all your objectives. So again, it's having a plan around that. This is kind of backed up by some of our these consumer confidence statistics here that we've been provided. The good news is that business confidence, client confidence is very high. We're seeing some really strong business wins at the moment, and actually that's really quite encouraging. That a lot of businesses are performing well and actually above where they anticipated to. Unfortunately, that's not being felt by the consumer at the moment. So a lot of the candidate focus, and again, this probably comes as part of the package with all the struggles with inflation and cost of living and all that kind of stuff. Of the 50% of people looking to move jobs, there is a level of cautiousness. So although people are saying they're willing to look for a new role, you have to think about why they're going to move and what the key factors are when they're actually making that decision. They will have choice. They will have choice to either stay where they are or move to one of your competitors. So you have to be confident in what you're offering the candidate, as well as that they're the right fit for you. You have to be confident in the offering that your organisation is giving to that person to try and secure the best talent. And again, we'll come on to some tips about how to do that and what your policies and procedures are around it. Again, this is taken from the Deloitte CFO survey. Their cash flow management strategies are number 2 on it's the second largest strategy that CFOs are trying to utilize, other than palming off costs on customers, to try and improve their sort of financial outlook. If that's the case, again, there are probably going to be businesses out there who are after the same types of people and the same skill sets that you may well be recruiting for. So again, it's how do we build that picture? How do you get to a point where you're the employer of choice? 90% of employers face skill shortages in the last year. That was up from 80% the year before. But across the UK, 93% of people said that they face skills shortages. So nearly everyone that we surveyed is struggling to find the right people to add to their business. 2/3 of accountancy and finance employees imagine they'll face competition from other employers when it comes to taking on new staff in the year ahead. So other challenges posed to the hiring process include those shortage of candidates. They expect to face a sharp rise in competition, and again, if you're not providing the right offering, how do you secure that talent? So it's really going back to thinking about that whole recruitment process from start to finish. How can you deliver the best, most compelling message to candidates out there? So there we go. What can you do to ensure the best chance of securing that talent? As a hiring manager or a business leader, how can you put measures in place to get the right people in and keep the right people in? Flexible working. It's become a bit of a buzzword and it's become a bit of a hot topic and constantly ever changing sort of argument and to and fro. 67% of credit management professionals are offering some form of hybrid working. This is actually lower than the typical as well. 74% of employers across the finance and accountancy industry were offering hybrid working, and it's become a bit of a norm for people when they're asking the details about a job. They'll often, one of their first questions is, what's the hybrid working policy? If 2/3 of your competition out there are offering hybrid working and more flexible working options, again, you're going to be on the back foot if you don't have something in place. I've started to see, anecdotally, personally, I've started to see a bit of a shift away from fully remote working. And I'll be interested to hear people's opinions on this as well. But there seems to be a shift away from fully remote working and more sort of office collaboration to try and find that balance between providing a positive office culture and giving people the flexibility that they want and are asking for. And it's a fine line, and it can be a tricky one to get right. So I think again, it's going back to asking the question: why are you asking them to come into the office? Are they delivering on the targets and the objectives that you're setting people? And what's the benefit of bringing them back in? Because ultimately, if it's just a box ticking exercise, then you're not going to get the people's buy-in. But if it's genuine, if it's for genuine reasons, then you hopefully will get people's engagement with coming back into the office. Got a comment here from someone: shortages are driven by lack of flexibility. In my opinion, there is a reason hundreds of people go for the same remote roles not many want to go into the office every week. And you're absolutely right, Lisa. Thank you for that. We are seeing that, and like I say, it's having a compelling reason why you're going back into the office. If it's just for because we've been told to, you're not going to get the engagement. But actually, if it's trying to drive better collaboration between the team, or it's that positive office environment that you're trying to achieve, there's probably a balance you can find most of the time. Other factors to consider. Now, these ones, to be fair, came as a bit of a surprise to me. Not necessarily because of what they are, but just because I was surprised at how highly people rated these as factors that they would consider when they're applying for a new role or looking for a new job. 74% of people said that an organisation's commitment to sustainability was a significant factor in their choice to move roles. I mean, it makes sense. It's becoming more and more of a hot topic. I think it's more and more on people's agendas, and I think that more and more people understand the impact that we can have as individuals and organisations to impact the world we live in. Just having a good message on your website or being able to articulate what you're doing as a business at interview could actually be the differentiating factor between getting that person across the line or losing out to one of your competitors. 83% of people want to know the organization's purpose and feel like they're working for someone that makes a difference. Now, that might be a lot easier if you're a charitable organization and you've got a clear purpose that benefits the community. Maybe less easy to do if you're potentially in a manufacturing business or something like that. But it's again coming up with a compelling argument and reason why you as a business are a good organization to work for, and what are you doing that is leading the way compared to some of your competitors potentially. So again, have a good compelling reason why to work for your organization in particular, and why yours is a good place to work. And lastly, 68% say that an organization's ability to show a diverse and inclusive culture is significant, has a significant impact on their job search. This is hardly surprising, and I think that we've come on leaps and bounds with diversity, equity, and inclusion over the last few years. But there's still a lot of work to be done there, and I think that actually when you see some of the statistics around this, it's quite surprising how many people feel they still can't be themselves at work. So again, going out of your way to demonstrate how you or your organization is trying to be as inclusive as possible will really benefit your chances of securing the right talent. Additional benefits, okay, again, what I mentioned before, it's not all about just base salary. What other things can you offer to try and keep people and attract people? 59% of people said that their number one priority outside of salary was to get an above average holiday entitlement or above statutory holiday entitlement. Unsurprising, we all like a day off, I'm sure. 47% people looked for health insurance or private medical cover, and 43% for an above statutory pension contribution. Again, these are I don't think are wholly surprising numbers, but if you're one of those that is offering the statutory benefits package, and especially if you're not on the market rate in terms of the salary, then you're going to find it extremely difficult to get those candidates across the line that are your number one priorities, because ultimately there are competitors out there who are offering above average levels in all of these areas. So just have a think about what actually your market rate is, and if you haven't got the ability to impact that, then what else can you offer? And again, it might go back to just being that compelling story about why you're a good organization to work for, but it's being aware of where you potentially are losing out to your competitors or are under the market rate to your competitors. Now, this is quite an interesting graph for me. growth in unemployment has come from individuals in the main under the age of 24. Experienced candidates are hard to come by. The skills are in demand, and there is this constant to and fro-in and battling of one candidate for 4 or 5 jobs potentially. But there is a little bit of a sort of untapped market here in young professionals. I think especially in credit, there are a lot of transferable skills, softer skills that could be utilised to try and generate potentially some really good additions to your team. Can we look at someone who coming from a customer service background, or a graduate who's just finished an accountancy degree but doesn't necessarily see credit as an option? Most of the people I speak to tend to feel that they've fallen into credit rather than it being a career that they grew up really wanting to get involved in. So a lot of the time it's just unawareness that credit is a really fantastic industry and job role to get into. So having a bit of an open book approach on potentially some of these candidates that don't tick all the boxes but could be molded into really valuable assets in your team in credit, if they've got that confidence, if they've got that ability to get on the phone and build relationships and do have some strong numeracy skills, actually that could be a solution to a lot of people's problems, especially if you've got some capacity in the team to grow and develop those people. And I think you'd be surprised at the loyalty you'll sometimes get from some of those candidates, that you've given them a chance and have given them an opportunity to get their foot in the door in a fantastic profession. So yeah, I think that it's definitely worth considering, and I appreciate that not everyone is in a position where they can give people the time and have all that capacity to do that, but where possible, I think it's definitely worth putting on your agenda. So some of the recommendations from us then, I've kind of covered some of these already, but again, how competitive is your pay? Yeah. If you, like I said, if you want to have a look at the salary guide, then there's a slide coming up that you can go in and request a copy or access it instantly to see where you're paying compared to the rest of the market. But ultimately, if you're that far off the mark, given the cost of living, that is skyrocketing, skill shortages causing pay increases, you saw for yourselves the numbers there that we've gone up 6-7% potentially in some areas. So if you're not on the right level in terms of competitive pay, then you're starting off on the back foot. So it's a conversation you really need to have first and foremost. Why should someone join your organisation? It's that thing I've mentioned once or twice already. What's the compelling reason for why they should come to you rather than a competitor? And make sure you have a strong narrative around that. And whoever's interviewing potentially with you or alongside you, make sure they have the same understanding that we need to sell back to your candidates. Flexible working policies, I covered that a fair bit. Demonstrating a diverse and inclusive culture, again, I think it's 68% of people are looking for that as a huge factor there. So again, if you don't have that and you're not demonstrating that, then you might be missing out on people. And your sustainability credentials as well. We had a few people that I've worked with personally who decided to apply for a role because of what they had on the job advert or on their website around sustainability. So if it's not easy to find and it's not being demonstrated, why not? Because it actually could mean the difference potentially with someone applying to that role or not applying. And some winning strategies for the race for talent. Sell at interview. So again, it's what I just mentioned there. Business confidence is high, consumer confidence is not. You have to convince them that you're the best place to work, have that compelling narrative, and really make sure that you've got a strong argument and to work on it. Look, of course, at interview, they are going to have to sell their expertise to you and make sure that they have got the right skills to get that job. But at the same time, they might convince you of that and they go to a competitor for because you didn't make them feel like they should be a part of your team. So make sure you have that compelling story to tell. Factor in the rising inflation and salary creep when pitching offers, pay rises. You might be able to get someone within your salary bracket now, but I'm sure no one wants to go through a recruitment process and then in a year's time recruit the same role because the salary has continued to creep up and up and up, and we've tried to get someone in slightly on the cheap. So just make sure that you're actually planning and budgeting ahead for some of those factors. You need to move at pace. I think the most frustration we feel as recruiters, and I'm sure you do as hiring managers, is when you actually like someone, you get them through a few steps in an interview process, or you like their CV and you find out that they've actually just accepted an offer elsewhere. These candidates have got options, as I've said before. You need to act quickly, and if you see someone that you like, do something about it. The amount of people that dally or wait for a comparator CV without seeing someone because they're not quite sure and they're the only person they've seen. If you're convinced and they've come across and demonstrated all the right skills, make sure you act on it. Otherwise, you will lose out on people. And if you're not finding the right people, where can you flex on your brief? Can you offer hybrid working? Can you do something different to attract the right people? And if someone's demonstrated the right skills and are asking for some flexibility, is it feasible, or is it just a case of we haven't asked that question or thought about it in any real depth? Part-time job shares, trying to entice the economically inactive population back into work. We've actually seen, especially for temporary assignments, we've seen people coming out of retirement, just want to do something, keep their hand in, keep busy. Are there people that are in a different circumstance, maybe returning from maternity leave? A lot of people I come across tend to want to look at a part-time role, but they can't find them. Is there any way of offering that? Can they add some value to your organisation for 20 hours a week? Because actually that might take a big chunk of stress off your desk or your team. So is there ways of trying to work around the problem? And I think it's being flexible in your approach and your mindset with that kind of thing, that actually there might be other options to explore here. And continue to hire on potential rather than skills. It goes back to that slide around the under 24 population. Yeah, there may well be some really fantastic individuals in that pool, but just because they haven't got 5 years in credit doesn't mean they can't be a fantastic credit controller. So if you've got the capacity to train and give a bit of support and development, which I think we'd all try to aspire to as managers, then can we find someone with the right skills and give them the tools? Skills can be taught. Sometimes it's the soft skills, the attitude, the sort of desire to want to learn that is often the harder thing to find. So if you interview someone with those attributes, then act on it, because actually they could be a real asset for you. And as promised, if you do want to have a look at the full salary guide, or would like me to run through a sort of demonstration and show you all the fancy bits and bobs that are available to you, then please either go on to hayes.co.uk/salary-guide or contact me on my contact details there on screen, and I'll be happy to arrange a time to jump on a call and walk you through it. So that's one last merciless plug for our salary guide there. Just as well, just a quick note on that, our salary guide also includes a number of quarterly updates. So the data is always being updated with the most recent findings. So hopefully it's as up to date as we can possibly get it. And that is it from me. Just a final plug for the CICM branch LinkedIn group. There's often lots of updates, discussions, topics, new events being posted on there. So if you're not part of the East of England branch group, we'd be more than happy to have you. And we're looking for as many people to contribute to that group as possible. And if you have any specific questions around how we operate as an East of England branch, or any questions to follow up, then please do email eastofenglandbranch@cicm.com. That is it from me. is there any questions? I've got a few in the chat, but please do feel free to speak up if you do have questions as well. Just going to stop sharing my screen in the meantime.
William, hi, my name's Kim Delaney Bowen. How are you doing?
Hi there, Kim.
Hi, I've put in my chat the question of whether you've come across any employers offering the 4-day working week yet.
Yes, I saw that, and I haven't, in all honesty. The people that I've been working with, I haven't had that come up as a topic. Now I know it is in discussion, and actually I've seen it as a bit of a topic of debate across a number of our specialisms. I think it's starting to sort of get a bit of traction at the moment, but I don't know anyone that's actually taken it and run with it as of yet. And personally, from my experience, I'm busy for 5 days a week, and I think I'd struggle to get my day job done in 4. I'd love to have another day off, don't get me wrong, but I think I'd struggle. And my honest answer is I think that it can work within certain businesses and certain industries, but I'm yet to actually recruit for anyone across the east of England that's been offering a 4-day working week. Have you had any insights into it at all?
No, that's why I was interested, really. It is very much in the early stages of being talked about, isn't it? I hear it on the radio news. Somebody did a webinar on it. I think it was last week or something. I can't remember who it was. And there was a company on there that had been running it for 5 years. And yeah, I work for a firm of accountants in Birmingham city centre, and because that is client driven and the client's needs aren't necessarily to 4 days a week, then we would find it difficult, I imagine. But then there were certain ideas of like, there's an organisation that offers, they're open to their customers or clients for 7 days a week, but their staff work 4 days a week because they spread it all the way across the week.
Yeah,
and absolutely. That's worked out well. I thought that was a clever idea, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I read an article not too long ago that demonstrated exactly that. So I think that's probably the best solution around it. Again, I think it's dependent on the industry and the customer base to an extent as well. Ultimately, like I say, in recruitment, if someone calls me and registers a job and I don't work on a Friday, then I'm at a competitive disadvantage. So I think it's going to be a real struggle to put it in unless it's done nationally. However, again, it has been working, and actually we've just had someone pop in the chat. Thank you, Stephen, for contributing that he knows someone in the banking industry that does a 4-day week. So there are businesses out there that can make it work, but it has to be fit for purpose, I think. And I feel like we're very much still at the beginning of that journey. We'll probably see some traction on that over the sort of coming years, but with the amount of turbulence we're seeing at the moment, I can't imagine it coming in as a blanket anytime soon.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
No problem. If we have any other questions come through the chat. Lisa put, question out of curiosity, shouldn't it be the job of the recruiter to convince the client of the benefits of offering that open-mindedness and flexibility? I keep getting that it's out of their own hands. So, well, absolutely, Lisa. We, as a recruiter, that we are going to be obviously doing our best to try and convince them that an opportunity is a good opportunity. But ultimately, we can only offer what's on the table. If you're not offering flexibility and you're not offering extra benefits and all your competitors are, and you're paying $5,000 less than everyone else, then it's still going to be hard to convince them. One of my key questions when I'm actually registering a job is, what makes your company a good company to work for? I want to understand the mechanics of the team and the organization so that we can sell that back to the person. I suppose I'm thinking also more from any direct recruiting you're doing as well. If you are trying to recruit or retain your staff and you're completely out of market salary and you're not demonstrating all those bits and bobs around sustainability and inclusivity and all that kind of good stuff, then you know you are going to be at a disadvantage to your competitors. It's not that you might not secure that talent, but you've got a better chance if you are bringing all that to the table. Are there any further qualifications employers tend to ask for other than CICM level 5 credit management? Have you seen any disadvantages for this qualification? It's not a full bachelor's degree. Interesting question, John, and I honestly think that this can be quite different depending on the type of business and the region that you're working in as well. For me, I started out, I'm actually based in Norwich and I've recruited in Norfolk for the majority of my time. I now cover the entire east of England for credit specifically. In Norfolk, it was a nice to have. The CICM qualification was a nice to have, but it was never an essential, and that's because of the makeup of predominantly SME business and not large credit functions being sort of part and parcel of the makeup of the industry up here. I think that what we're trying to work towards here is recognizing that qualification actually does take the ceiling off, and it gives people a different skill set. And I have started to see more and more organizations asking for CICM as an essential criteria rather than a desirable. We're still very much on that journey, and I think that realistically it's up to us within the credit profession to keep encouraging people to go down that route, because actually the support you can gain and the networks that you know are provided to you from doing that qualification can really benefit them long term. I don't feel that the full bachelor's degree is a massive drawback, because I think that people can understand the skills that you generate from doing those qualifications. But I honestly think that we're in a position, if you're in credit, you should know about it and you should be trying to drive towards your professional development. And maybe it's not on the radar as much as it should be, especially in smaller organizations. I hope that answers your question. Please feel free to add more if there's any more on that.
William, it's Kim again.
Yeah.
Just to echo some of the things that you were saying there about the CICM qualification. My employer went through a merger, well, several years ago now, and it brought with it a team into the Northwest. And I remember going to meet them, and we were talking about different things and recruitment and whatnot. And when I talked about the CICM qualification, they were very much, nobody really bothers with that. Don't really need it. To which I said, if you were recruiting in one of the main cities, I assure you that if you were looking for somebody as a team leader level upwards, it's most likely they would be keen to see the CICM letters on that CV. And working in Birmingham city centre, I know it definitely carried some, let's just say it got me my foot in a few more doors, having that. And on a personal note, what I liked about the study was I picked up a lot of information, like for the part that deals with the accounting principles. It gave me a lot more insight into like the business management side and understanding business a bit more. And that helped me, because I have a lot of meetings with some senior stakeholders in the business, and knowledge is power. And it's tailored specifically for our arena. So yeah, I would definitely encourage people that want to have a career in credit management, that is valuable.
Well, I would agree, and I think this is we talk about this quite a lot at our branch meetings, and it's a sort of constant topic that we speak about, to try and encourage more people into those positions, really. And it's what we've sort of tried to do is how can we encourage more people in at the bottom end, but how can we also retain the people that are, credit professionals through and through for staying as part of a membership, and how do we keep driving that forward? Because ultimately, we want it to be in a place where it's seen as, in the same light as, a chartered accountancy qualification like ACCA or a CIMA. And at the moment, it probably isn't. In all honesty, we're just not seeing that same kind of buy-in, which is a real shame. But I think that what we are trying to do is we're trying to put people on the right path and make it as valuable as possible to our members. And if we don't believe in the value of the qualification as credit managers, credit professionals, then how are we going to expect our staff members to do the same and put stock into it? So I think it's all just down to the mindset, and I think we all have a bit of responsibility to try and generate that interest from our end as well. Any further questions from anyone? I seem to have lost my chat function, so I'm just double checking. I haven't picked up anything else. There we go, I've got it back. I think that is it. Yep, unless there's any more for any more, I think that's we've kind of come to a natural end. What I would say is that if there is anyone out there who is looking for a bit more information, or like I said, would like a demo of the salary guide, or is interested in being part of the East of England branch or contributing, then please don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, there's either the East of England branch LinkedIn group, the East of England branch at CICM.com email, or my personal email, william.plom@hayes.com. So please do reach out if you'd like any further follow-up. But I'll thank everyone very much for their time, and I hope you have a lovely Wednesday. Thank you very much.